In 1953, two researchers at McGill University, James Olds and Peter Milner, were mapping brain regions responsible for alertness in rats. During one trial, an electrode slipped into a small cluster of neurons near the base of the forebrain, the septal area. When the researchers connected the electrode to a metal lever, allowing the rat to self-administer a brief electrical pulse, something extraordinary happened. The rat did not explore its cage, groom itself, or eat. It walked directly to the lever and pressed it. Then it pressed it again. Over the next 12 hours, the rat pressed the lever more than 7,000 times, ignoring food, water, and sleep until it collapsed from physical exhaustion. Olds and Milner had accidentally discovered the brain's reward pathway. 50 years later, software engineers and behavioral psychologists in Silicon Valley took that exact neural circuit and wired it directly into the pockets of 4 billion people. To understand why modern social media holds such a relentless grip on human attention, we must dismantle a widespread myth about human biology. Most people assume that when they open Instagram, TikTok, or Twitter, they are searching for pleasure. They believe the rush from a red notification badge is a burst of happiness. Neuroscience tells a fundamentally different story. In 1997, neurophysiologist Dr. Wolfram Schultz at Cambridge University conducted landmark studies on dopamine neurons in primates. Schultz placed microelectrodes into the ventral tegmental area of monkeys and paired a light cue with a drop of sweet juice. Initially, dopamine neurons fired when the juice touched the monkey's tongue. The brain was registering a reward. However, once the monkey learned that the light predicted the juice, something counterintuitive occurred. Dopamine neurons completely stopped firing when the juice was delivered. Instead, the entire burst of dopamine shifted to the exact millisecond the light flashed. Dopamine is not the chemical of pleasure or satisfaction. Pleasure is mediated by separate neurochemical systems, specifically opioids and endorphins. Dopamine is the molecule of anticipation, desire, and pursuit. It is the brain's prediction engine, evolved to drive organisms to hunt, forage, and explore. When an outcome is guaranteed, dopamine remains modest. When an outcome is uncertain, the circuit transforms pursuit into an obsession. This brings us to the core mechanism at the center of modern digital feeds, the variable ratio schedule of reinforcement. In the 1930s, Harvard behavioral psychologist B.F. Skinner placed animals inside specialized testing boxes. Skinner tested different schedules for dispensing food pellets when an animal pressed a lever. Under a continuous schedule, where every press delivered food, animals pressed only when hungry and stopped once full. Under a fixed schedule, where every fifth press delivered food, animals developed a predictable routine. Then Skinner introduced a variable ratio schedule. Food was dispensed unpredictably, sometimes on the first press, sometimes on the 20th, sometimes not at all. The result was dramatic. Animals pressed the lever frantically and continuously at maximum physical speed. Even when Skinner turned off the dispenser entirely, they continued pressing thousands of times without stopping. Uncertainty creates maximum behavioral drive because the brain experiences a surge of dopamine, known as a positive prediction error, whenever an unexpected reward arrives. In the analog world, this mathematics powers mechanical slot machines. A gambler pulls the lever precisely because they do not know if the next pull will deliver nothing or hit a jackpot. In the digital world, every major mobile app is engineered around this exact principle. Consider the physical gesture you perform dozens of times a day, pulling down to refresh your feed. In 2008, software engineer Loren Brichter was developing a mobile Twitter app called Tweety. Refreshing a feed typically required tapping a small button. Brichter invented a new gesture, pulling the feed downward past its top boundary, holding it against elastic resistance, and releasing it. The interface bounces back. A small wheel spins for a fraction of a second, and new content drops into view. The pull to refresh gesture precisely replicates the mechanical and neurological loop of a slot machine. You pull the lever, endure a deliberate micro-delay of uncertainty where dopamine spikes, and release to see if you have won new notifications or viral videos. In 2017, Brichter publicly acknowledged this unintended consequence, noting that smartphone apps had turned into slot machines carried in everyone's pockets. This mechanic was paired with another interface breakthrough, the elimination of stopping cues. In 2006, software engineer Aza Raskin invented the infinite scroll. Previously, web browsing was organized into numbered pages. Reaching the bottom of page 1 created a natural stopping cue where users consciously decided whether to continue. Infinite scroll eliminated this boundary. As a user scrolls near the bottom, code silently stitches the next batch of content onto the screen. To understand why this destroys self-control, consider a famous study by Dr. Brian Sink at Cornell University. Participants were given soup bowls that secretly refilled from hidden tubes under the table as they ate. Participants eating from bottomless bowls consumed 73% more soup than those with normal bowls. Yet, they did not believe they had eaten more, nor did they feel fuller. Humans rely on visual stopping cues to end behaviors. When a book chapter ends or television credits roll, you encounter a natural boundary. Social media feeds are bottomless soup bowls for the visual cortex, removing every natural friction point that signals it is time to stop. These interfaces were engineered through the formal science of persuasive psychology. In the 1990s, Dr. B.J. Fogg established the Persuasive Technology Lab at Stanford University. His Fogg behavior model shows that behavior occurs only when three elements converge: motivation, ability, and a prompt. If an action requires high mental effort, people rarely do it. Silicon Valley engineers systematically stripped every particle of friction from their apps. Autoplaying videos removed the effort of clicking. Algorithmic feeds removed the effort of searching. Push notifications provided the prompt, while variable rewards supplied endless motivation. In 2017, Sean Parker, the founding president of Facebook, candidly explained this architecture. The thought process was all about, how do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible? And that means we need to sort of give you a little dopamine hit every once in a while because someone liked or commented on a photo or a post. It's a social validation feedback loop, exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology. That vulnerability is rooted in evolutionary biology. For ancestral hunter-gatherers, tribal inclusion was a matter of life and death. Being ostracized meant starvation. Consequently, the brain evolved an intense sensitivity to social approval and status. When social platforms quantified approval into visible numbers, likes, shares, and follower counts, they weaponized this ancient survival instinct. Every notification represents potential social affirmation or the threat of rejection. Your nervous system cannot tell the difference between ancestral tribal standing and digital tallies on glass. It reacts with the same physiological intensity. The consequence of living inside this perpetual loop is severe cognitive erosion. Psychologists and neuroscientists have documented three primary vectors of damage. The first is attentional fragmentation. Research led by Dr. Gloria Mark at UC Irvine tracked digital users over 2 decades. In 2004, the average attention span on a screen before switching tasks was 2.5 minutes. By 2012, it dropped to 75 seconds. Today, it is just 47 seconds. Constant interruptions leave what psychologists call attention residue. When switching tasks, your working memory does not instantaneously clear. Dr. Mark's data shows it takes an average of 23 minutes and 15 seconds to regain deep focus after a single distraction. Checking a phone every 15 minutes guarantees your brain never reaches sustained cognitive depth. The second vector is the degradation of memory consolidation. Long-term memory requires transferring information from the hippocampus into the neocortex. This process requires cognitive quiet, moments of idle wakefulness, and daydreaming free from external stimulation. Today, micro-moments of boredom are gone. Standing in an elevator or waiting in line is instantly filled by reaching for a screen. By constantly flooding the brain with input, we deny neural networks the idle time required to consolidate knowledge. The third vector is neurochemical dysregulation. Dr. Anna Lemke, professor of psychiatry at Stanford and author of Dopamine Nation, explains that the brain maintains balance through an opponent process mechanism. When artificial stimuli trigger massive dopamine spikes, the brain downregulates dopamine receptors and elevates pain signals to restore baseline. With continuous stimulation, this balance tilts chronically toward a deficit. Users experience restlessness and irritability whenever disconnected. They reach for their phone not to feel pleasure, but simply to escape the discomfort of their own thoughts. If you enjoy exploring the hidden psychological systems and neuroscience shaping human behavior, consider subscribing to the channel. In 1953, Olds and Milner watched a laboratory rat press a lever 7,000 times because an electrode stimulated its anticipation circuit. The rat did not choose to destroy itself. Its evolutionary hardware was hijacked by an artificial stimulus it could not resist. Today, billions of people carry a digital lever in their pockets, pulling down on glass screens and refreshing feeds without conscious intent. Tech platforms understand the neuroscience of anticipation with mathematical precision. They know unpredictable rewards produce unbreakable habits. They know removing friction removes conscious choice. And they know your attention is the most valuable commodity on Earth. The lever in your hand will continue dispensing random rewards as long as you pull it. The only way to win the game is to stop pressing the lever.